we spoke about the definition of strength of reality. And when we talked about that, we defined it as like how firm you are in your beliefs. You guys remember that? How firm are you in your beliefs? And then how much that rock solid, fixed sense of certainty draws other people into your world. So that was like a surface level definition of having a strong reality. But I want to now expand that definition. Okay? I want to take that definition to the next level for you guys. If you've never considered it like this before, you're going to start thinking about people you know, and you may start to laugh. There's two different ways that people can have a strong reality. One is like this. Here's their knowledge, like that. All right? If that's the way that your mind is set up, okay, what happens if you knock out one of the pillars?
No big deal.
Does it fuck the whole deal?
Nope.
Here's what a lot of people who have very firm realities are like, including a lot of very hard-headed leaders in like certain, like, have you guys ever heard of like very ego-based CEOs? Sure. Or like political leaders like who are just so stuck in their own reality? Their sense of reality looks more like this. And maybe even like this. So what's going on here? They've linked it together in a web. One way, and this is absolutely fascinating that human beings do this, and after we talk about it, I would ask you guys to go out and look at people, or at yourself, of course at yourself, to see if you can observe it. What some people do in order to make their reality stronger, to give themselves a stronger sense of certainty, is they will continually link up one belief to another belief. So they'll say, well, of course that's going to work. I did this, and if that's true, then this has to be true. You guys see that? Have you guys ever known someone who say, okay, let me just strain for a second. Come up with some examples. If you guys can think of examples, throw your hands up. Say that somebody says, take a simple thing like, I could never suffocate because I need to breathe. Right? So you want to believe that oxygen is going to be in abundance because you feel the need that you have to be able to breathe. Well, it's the same thing. If you tell somebody,
of course this floats. This floats. It's similar to that. Of course that floats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like do you guys remember how I talked about the opaque wall of judgments, comparisons, interpretations, and labels?
Yeah.
Well, if you're always trying to put labels on things, like seeking security, say, look, there's this label here, and that relates to this, and that label relates to that. Like, okay, think about a pickup method, right? Okay, well, if girls think like this, then in that case, we will pick up girls by doing X, Y, and Z. You guys see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, we're like, okay, great example. Remember how I talked about a lot of pickup models? It's like the man is down here and the woman is up here? Yeah. So basically, coming from that belief set, you have all these beliefs that are attached onto that. So if you tell them no men are up here, then all those other beliefs are getting nixed out.
Yep.
So they're not going to be able to hear that, right? They're not going to be able to listen to that because what they're doing instead, do you want to know what human beings do instead? We are continually seeking validation of our existing beliefs, aren't we? How excited are you to find out like, hey, woohoo, yippee, I just found out some stuff I thought was wrong.
Pretty excited, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I asked the wrong crowd, that one. Wrong crowd. All right, look, most people, though. Do most people want to find out they're wrong, or are most people excited that they're wrong? Most people are a lot more excited going, what's the people's favorite words? I told you so.
Yep. Yeah.
I told you so.
I have a friend who ends every sentence with period. So he's
period.
He's like, yeah, so I think this, and that's the way it is, period.
Yep.
And he's like,
Some people cannot tolerate ambiguity. Have you guys ever known someone with a very strong reality? He's very persuasive, but he's not capable of tolerating ambiguity. It's either it's like this or it's like this. But they don't like that ambiguity because here's what's happening. Like I said, when we have this kind of reality, you can nix out one principle. It's like, oh, I was wrong about that? Okay. Boom. But all this other stuff is still intact. Does that sound like a strong reality?
yeah.
Really, right? Other people, if you nix out one part of the reality, Well, guess what? This line was attached to this, and that line's attached to that, and that line's attached to that and to that, and those lines are attached to that and to that and to that. So they're not capable of having a shift in their thinking because you would be threatening too much. And guess what, guys? Whether or not people get stuck in these kind of strategies is very arbitrary. Because unless you've been taught this in grade school or something, how are you going to know not to unconsciously attach your beliefs together in a web? Like, I think I'm unconsciously attaching my belief systems together in a web and I'm being closed-minded. I better stop doing that. No one's going to know that they're not supposed to do that. Right. So of course, they're not going to know that they're doing it, so now they're stuck. And this is what creates very difficult people. And this is also why some of like the coolest, most high-status people you know are really hard to get along with. Have you guys ever known a guy who's really good with girls, but he's got this thick ego that you're always talking through, this thick frame of reality that you're always talking to? Yeah? Like you can't just talk to him openly, right? Because he'll be like, no, 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 right? And he's always trying to like shut down your belief about this or that because you're messing with it. But see, a system of beliefs like this tends to be very strong, like on a certain level, right? That tends to be really, really strong. Like, you can get a really hard-headed dude like this, a real hardcore, extreme-thinking dude, who, with women, can be very successful. Look. Yeah, I mean, do you guys remember the example that I gave in Foundations about, like, the delusional confidence guy, the calibration guy, and then, like, that third type of guy? You guys remember that one? Yeah. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen Foundations, the 30-second explanation is this. On one side, you have the delusional confidence guy. His style of pickup works like this. He walks up to the girls, he approaches, and he's talking to them, and if they give him negative feedback, he doesn't see it, right? Yeah. Because he has delusional confidence. He has what's called blind spots. You guys know what a scotoma is? Yeah. Did I say that properly? Yeah. Scotoma? I've read the term, I've never said it before, I don't think. What's a scotoma, guys? Blind spot. It's a blind spot. What a blind spot is like, say a guy's real cool. Say he's got that web of beliefs right there. He's going to throw up blind spots to anything that doesn't feed into his existing beliefs. So if his belief system is like, I'm God's gift to women. Okay, I am God's gift to women. And he walks up, he's like, hey, right, starts talking. And then she gives negative feedback. He has a blind spot towards that. As a result, his state stays firm. He holds state. And say that the girl kind of dislikes him, but the interaction still goes anyway. Like, you know how a girl could hate you, but you still talk at least for a little bit? And then slowly, what happens is, because he maintains his state, he has a dominant reality and sucks her into his state. Yeah. So that's like the natural style, right? Then you have guys that have a very weak reality. Like they don't have any blind spots, right? They can see. They're like social feedback junkies, aka a response junkie. You guys ever heard the expression a response junkie? Okay, reaction seeker, all right? Addicted to response. They see every little thing. They can see every little response, total social calibration, and they hate it. Most people who have that, who can see all the negative responses, they get shy. But sometimes they get creative. And what do? They come up with the perfect line for every situation. The perfect opener. The perfect follow-up. If she says this, you say this. If she's giving this reaction, you give the shorter version of the pickup line. If she's giving that reaction, you give the longer version of the pickup line. And it's all good, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, when he goes in there and he's running his lines, if he doesn't get the reaction, what happens to his state? Drops, right? So then he gets blown out. On the other hand, okay, let's get another example. Let's say that the delusional confidence guy, he's being cool, but his delusional confidence, he's just too off the mark. He's just too you know how he's too socially out of step. Have you guys ever heard that expression, being socially out of step? He's just too socially out of step. For example, a lot of vagrants have delusional confidence, right? Mm-hmm. But they're too far off the mark. Like, you know, you can be off the mark to an extent, but if you're so far off the mark, you look mentally ill or crazy or weird. Like, not like cool weird, but like just fucking weird. All right? Okay? In that case, you're too off the mark. So say the delusional confidence guy goes up, he's talking to the girl, and he's just too off the mark. Even though he holds his state, they just blow him off. Meanwhile, maybe the other guy who's like, you know, who has a little line for everything, he goes up, he doesn't get the good reaction, but he's got that perfect comeback, and then he does get it. All right? So do you guys see how there's pros and cons to like looking for that validation, looking for reaction, or just having total blind spots to it? Well, what's the solution then?
Well,
The third guy, right?
yeah, most guys in the community, I think, for a while, for that second guy, like super hyper calibrated, whatever, routine for everything guy. And then they get to a point where they start letting go of that reactivity. And then they outdo the naturals because they have core confidence, but it's not delusional. Like, shifted it up in their game.
The ideal guy in the community, absolutely. Yeah, one of the success stories, absolutely. And that's the thing, we call it the third guy, which is the guy who's capable of like, he can see the negative social feedback, but he doesn't like focus on it. Kind of like what you were saying, Dan, how like someone's trying to fuck up your shit, and you might know that they're doing it, but it's just so irrelevant. Like you've made the distinction that it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like you've made that distinction, like, you know what, this doesn't matter at this point. I'm not going to focus on it, whatever, right? So you can hold your state up, but meanwhile, maybe you also know how to calibrate to a certain extent. All right? It's a mix. Okay? That's that blessed third guy. All right? Not just blind spots, not just a hyper calibrator and a response junkie, but that third guy, he has the strengths on both sides. Anyway, look, this is sort of an interesting thing. Keep your eyes open for people who have this type of concept of reality. So what direction does that bring us in? First of all, it redefines our concept of a strong reality, doesn't it? Because somebody who has that type of reality, number one, they have a strong reality, but number two, it's actually weak. Have you guys ever heard the concept that the more rigid the structure, the less adaptable it is? Let's say that life is like a path. And at first the path is nice and wide, right? And here's your belief structure. But let's say that then it narrows like that. And this is your big belief structure. It comes over here. What happens? It crumbles, right? From an evolutionary standpoint, the more rigid the structure, the more likely it is to crumble. That's when we talk about the ego. When you have this grand concept of who you are, and suddenly you get feedback that shows that you're not that person, your sense of self crumbles. This is actually comes back to the old Eastern philosophy expression. Can anyone name it?
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Is that an Eastern philosophy? No, I like that. Yeah, maybe it is go with the flow. But look, yeah, spit that out loud. Loud.
Flow like water.
Yeah, say it loud to them.
Flow like water.
Yeah, be water. All right? Be water. All right? Which basically means you don't have that rigid structure. How does that apply in martial arts, by the way, guys? Can anyone explain how that applies in martial arts?
Non-resistance.
Non-resistance, yeah. Basically in martial arts, and you can read about this in a book called Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee, what he's basically saying is this. Say that you have a concept of what fighting is like. You're like, okay, well, most people punch like that. And when they punch like that, I do this response. And when they punch like that, I do this response. And then you get into a real fight in the real world. If they don't attack you the way that you were expecting, your whole sense of self gets crumbled because you had invested your ego into your martial arts method. And so what happens is you crumble, all right? Now, that was an idea in a book called Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. Really fascinating idea and kind of revolutionized the martial arts world from my understanding of it at least. So look, two concepts of a weak reality and a strong reality, okay? One is, yeah, you have a strong belief system. The other, though, is a flexible belief system that can go through an impasse. All right, so the next concept that we have is called altering perception to preserve the map. Reordering perception to preserve the map. It is a concept that's so important that I'm going to ask you guys to just indulge me and humor me and repeat after me, okay? So first I'm going to say and then you guys are going to repeat it. Reordering perception to preserve the map.
Reordering perception to preserve the map.
Great, I'm going to say it again. Reordering perception to preserve the map.
Reordering perception to preserve the map.
Great. People do this all the time. Let me tell you. So let's talk about a skill set. The ability to quickly sift through ideas and either take them on or reject them is actually a strength and a skill. In fact, even beyond that, the more adaptable that you are in allowing conflicting or paradoxical realities to exist in your mind without being shut down by them, the more readily you can jump between maps. And where other people would fall flat on their face, you will stand. So look, let's look at some examples of paradoxical realities. Do you guys remember how I spoke about how people will oftentimes rationalize, right? They'll rationalize and do what's in their best interest. So that's one concept of reality, right? But do you remember how I also talked about how when you view the best in people and you see the best in all people, even seeing yourself in all people, that people will be very positive and you want to believe the best from individuals? You guys remember that?
Yes.
Paradoxical or no?
No. Yes.
It certainly has paradox on the surface, right? How about a concept like see yourself in others, being a part of the whole, versus something like maybe a Richard Dawkins type reality or a Matt Ridley type reality where we say the selfish gene, right? And how people do what's in their best interest. Paradoxical on the surface?
Yeah.
All right? That's a tough one, huh? Have you guys ever met someone who's really into that whole evolutionary thing and really believes that their whole life is about survival and replication and that they have to like get ahead and like it's like a Machiavellian type concept? Right? It's very interesting because you see, I mean, different people have different sides of personality. Sometimes people can show one side, sometimes people can show another. But whenever I've seen people indulge in that, during the time they are indulging in it, they seem so empty. Like, I mean, from what I've seen, I remember seeing Richard Dawkins himself on the Colbert Report. And, you know, he's talking, and, you know, he's saying, you know, people have their selfish intentions, and that's how, you know, they get sex and stuff like that. And I'm looking at Dawkins himself, and I'm like, you know, this guy's an amazing scientist, an amazing man on all levels, and a guy who I would be honored to meet. But I don't think the dude's getting laid. You know what I'm saying? Right? That wasn't the impression that I had. He seemed very rigid. I would actually love the opportunity to take him out to a nightclub. Really. You know what I'm saying? Right? And to learn a million things from him. I'm sure he probably has no interest, but I'm just saying that, you know, I mean, he's a man of science, and he's taken that path, and I have nothing but respect. But the point is that there's something about someone who interprets the world through that, like, oh, everyone's selfish and trying to get theirs, and I've got to try and get mine. There's just something inherently whack about that, all right? And so we have to be able to handle those paradoxical realities, all right? Then on one level, we can look at something like the selfish gene, and on another level, we can see ourselves in others and not be thrown off by that, like not needing to resolve it, if that makes sense, not needing to go, right, like, and having it to make sense. Why is that? Because the map is not the territory. You guys ever heard that?
NLP term.
Yeah, it's an NLP term. The map is not the territory. Every concept of reality that we have, it's just a concept, right? It's like, it's a label on the reality. It's not the reality itself. So, as great as a map can be, it only has, it's limited, right? It's finite in its ability to give you a knowledge of what you're looking at. By the way, Bruce, did you have a question?
I was going to say I was actually very similar myself. I used to look at what, from an evolutionary point of view, would be beneficial, and then think, oh, I should do that, rather than following my heart. And actually, it was just a defense way of not having to get in touch with myself. So I could intellectually say, oh, this must be the right thing for me to do. Whereas, in fact, what I really want to do was something different. And so those are two kind of paradoxical things that clash that I was just following one rather than reconciling.
It's a tough one for me too, you know, because when you go out and you do this, and I know you've been out a long time, you see so much that validates evolutionary theory, huh? Like, wow, you know? I mean, it's like, this makes sense. Like, when you see the reticular activation system stuff at work and how people go to where the value is and how people follow the warm end of the pool, you are like, damn, like, this evolution stuff makes just so much sense. And I believe in this wholeheartedly, and I guess this is just what life is. I guess we really just are these little stimulus responders. That's what we are, and I should just get mine and benefit, right? But the thing is, like, you should get yours. And if you read Ayn Rand, she talks about how, one of your highest responsibilities is to achieve success so that other people can be uplifted, and to be proud of it, not even ashamed of it. But the thing is like, when you have that kind of like get mine mentality all the time, you see people that have it, and another guy's 50 Cent. You guys ever seen 50 Cent the rapper? Does he look very happy?
No.
Right? Except, I heard an interview with him drunk the other night on TV, on the radio, which is hilarious. But for the most part, it's like, actually the funniest thing I've ever seen, I don't know if I have permission to broadcast this, but I would love to broadcast it, is when 50 Cent lost the record battle to Kanye West, right? And he's sitting there. I knew he was going to lose months in advance because all the guy ever does talk about is money all the time, and it doesn't sound like there's any interest behind the music itself. It sounds like he just thinks his consumers are a joke. And I'm a fan of 50 Cent's music, so that's why I thought that was kind of funny. Huge fan. Loved his first album, I love Get Rich or Die Trying. So anyway, he sits there and he's like, yeah, I lost. He's like, yeah, I lost. He's like, but I don't care. I've got money. So I'm happy, right? I've got money. And he's like that, and just wanders off, right? Like, it's like, I got the money. I should be happy. Right? Like, look at his album name, right? Get Rich or Die Trying. Yep. I got it. So he's like, I'm happy, I got the money. He's like, I'm rich. And he just like stumbles off, looking confused into his private plane. Like, why? It didn't work. It just didn't work. All right? Yeah. It's a funny thing. You know?
This whole concept was based on, I think, sold him the most amount of records. That's why it fucked up. And like,
yeah. What he had there, when 50 Cent widened his sense of identity, it was like this. 50 Cent had a very rigid structure. He says, I've sold as many albums as the Beatles, or I had as many singles up as the Beatles, or something close to it, or something like that. I sold the most amount of records, etc., etc., etc. I'm the highest selling artist. Everyone else is a joke compared to me. And then what happened? What did he do there? What's as a quote unquote pickup artist? Where's the similarity?
Validation.
I can get any girls. That's who I am. Right? Whenever you base your identity on the way the external world will respond to you, what is the typical thing that will happen eventually?
It'll change.
Pain and crumbling.
Your hubris will end up destroyed.
Yeah. Do you guys remember I talked about in Transformations how I was saying how before, from up until 2004, RSC was the biggest company, like massive, right? And I'm like, we're the best, we're the biggest company. And then in 2005, we took all that crazy publicity, right? And then it was like, ooh, RSC's not the bomb anymore, you know what I'm saying, right? And I was just crumbled, you know? And that sort of identity that I had to crumble, right? It was like, right? And then had to start getting through life like that. So the thing is, we think about that, right? Concept of reality. I mean, when you guys think about the 50 Cent one, have you ever heard the expression, it didn't work? Or, let's get to the future? Those are two great ones, right? There's a joke that me and my friends do. It's an inside joke, so you guys are not going to have any idea of what I'm talking about. Where Eckhart Tolle in the seminar. Have you guys ever seen Eckhart Tolle in the seminar?
Yeah.
Okay? Well, he's just completely funny looking, all right? And he sits there, and he talks about the ego, and how the ego, he's like, it looks around, it goes, let's get to the future. Let's get out of here. Like that. And what is he doing? He's trying to find salvation in the future, right? Happiness is not right now. Right. What you'll find, and what a lot of people find when they get into success with women, is that it's not what they expected. Okay? It did not provide the happiness, all right? And we'll talk more about that, okay? We'll talk more about it. By the way, a lot of people quit success with women altogether, and I don't believe in that. But anyway, look. Getting back on track, look, your sense of reality. The next map. By the way, before I do the next map, a quick wake up. Guys, tell me to feel good.
Feel good.
Tell me to be happy.
Be happy.
Tell me to jump.
Jump.
Ah! All right, look. Okay? Give me a little bit of noise. Look, gotta stay awake here. Long seminar. Look, guys, 4 days. All right. Next big concept. Oh man, this is big for you. Look, if you are the man standing right here, and this is the summit of the mountain up here, can you see the mountain? The peak?
No.
From there. I know it's a faraway drawing, so you guys I'll ask you guys in the front. Can you see the peak? No. So, what peak can you see? That one, right? So, what do?
Climb it.
You climb it. So the little man goes up the hill. And that, even being a smaller peak, might still be a challenging one, right? So you get up here. And then what happens? You go, what's that thing? What? You gotta be kidding me. Do you know how high I just climbed right there? But see, here's the thing, right? Do you just get, are you Super Mario?
No.
You remember Luigi in Mario Brothers 2? He had the big jump.
I will be after the seminar.
After the seminar, Super Mario. All right, thank you. Look. Okay? The one, right? Okay, look. Do you guys remember Luigi in Mario Brothers 2? He could do the big hop, but you can't do the big hop, okay? Do you get to just float on up from here? Unless maybe you took that pixie dust, right? Okay? You don't get to float there. See, you gotta go, you want to get to this peak, you gotta go back down. So now, look at what you did. You spent this much work going up, then you gotta go back down like that. You've gotta like undo all the work that you did just to be allowed to slowly, painfully, inch by inch, crawl back up to the top. Aye! All right? That was me. When I had a method of how to be successful with women, I went to this peak. I said, how high can I get using this way of doing things? These beliefs, this style, this reality. And when I slowly started to realize that I could become a natural, right? When you slowly start to realize you could become a natural, you don't just get to keep going. It's not like that. You got to go back down. You know why? I had every pickup line and tactic in the book. And when I'd be talking to a girl, they'd all want to come out, right? So first I had to just chill out for a while and just get used to talking to people again. Just get used to interacting normally without becoming a frame control addict. Needing to control the energy, the flow of the situation all the time to keep myself in state. Like I should have teach myself that. Like, think about this. What happened was, I had learned to get into state by controlling the social feedback. In order to become a natural, what you essentially have to do is learn how to just chill with a regular person and just enjoy the way you feel. Right? To have like that nimbus when you're not framed. Like, can you experience the nimbus? Can you have the nimbus just sitting there and letting somebody else talk?
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? See? But when you're used to when you're a newbie coming from nothing, like what I was and like what some of you guys are, maybe a lot of you guys are, you're not used to just feeling good about yourself. But when you can go out and use different techniques to get responses to feel good about yourself, why would you stop? The only solution is give me more. Right? Because isn't that the funny thing? When you learn pickup lines and stuff, you can hold attention for a bit. When it stops working, do you say, I need to develop core confidence? No, you go, more lines. Right? It's only natural. When I use the lines, it works, so I need more of those, clearly. Right? Thinking that you can somehow, entertain the girl, like, here, come to the bedroom. Right? Let's go. Okay? So you got to go back down. Then you start the way back up. That is what it's like for a lot of people, okay? Say that you have a concept of who you are, a reality of who you are. You say, I'm a cool guy. Remember Linda from 5 years ago? I saw her, I wanted her, I got her. To actually start becoming successful with women, you've got to start to realize maybe you're not what you thought you were. You've got to humble yourself. And humbling yourself means going back down. And that's not so easy for a lot of people because there's too many ramifications. Your mind does not really want to do it, all right? So even if you gain sight of that higher peak, oh man, too many stepping stones, your mind doesn't want to do it. Your mind is inherently a lazy mind. That's if you haven't developed it. On the first day, we spoke about how when an astronaut goes into space, when he comes back, his bones have lost density. It's not even that your mind's a lazy mind, it's that your mind is trying to conserve energy. So you have to snap your mind into it. Things like reading books, for example, look. Has anyone here ever gone a couple of years without reading books for a little while, and for a part of their life? Gone a few years not reading books. I bet you even more of you than that, right? Really? Everyone's gone at some point a couple of years without reading big books and stuff. So when you go back to reading, what keeps happening? I have a buddy who hadn't read in a long time. And I said, here, you should read this while we're on a boat. And he's like, and he starts to read, and he's like, I think I'm falling asleep. You ever do that?
Yeah.
You start to read something that you don't, it's just too complicated, whatever. And you just feel like, you just realize, you're like, damn, I think I'm more tired than I thought. Right? I just need to just close my eyes for a minute just to get a little bit more energy, and then I can read this later.
Yeah.
Right? And then you start to read it later and you do the same thing. Maybe you've done that if you have an essay due for school. Okay? Suddenly, whereas normally you'd stay up late playing video games, but tonight you just really need your sleep. Alright? Okay? So your mind, when not given the opportunity to blossom, will do that. Now how about when you're reading a lot? You're just educating yourself. What happens then to your mind?
Then your mind won't go to sleep. You're like,
if anything, yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Get the hell up. Get 2 in the morning, you're writing and writing.
Mm-hmm. Like, have you guys ever also reached a point where you're gathering so much knowledge, your mind hungers for knowledge?
Yeah.
You just love it, right? Your mind is hungering for knowledge. And that's an amazing thing. To me, that's like human potentiality at its finest. So, I think that, you wake your mind up, you force your mind to work through the complexities of a new set of beliefs. But look, this is one of the freakiest and hardest to believe with barriers that you will ever encounter. Reordering perception to preserve the map. Now look, let me tell you, even if your life sucks, does your mind care? From an evolutionary perspective, does your mind care if you hate your life?
No.
Are you going to die if you just don't really like your life?
No.
So it doesn't matter, does it? It's the same way. You know how women might date like a jerk guy and maybe he like drives her nuts, but as long as he has high value, all that evolution cares about is that she gets like that right seed? Yeah. It's the same thing for you. Even if you don't like your life. Look, say that this is a really common frustration in self-development in general. You know that you're capable of so much more. Let's say that you live in like some suburb and you maybe have a vision for yourself. Maybe your vision is, I want to move to downtown Manhattan, wherever it is, right? I want to move to downtown Manhattan. I want to get the kind of job that I really dream about. I want to start going out socializing with people, meeting girls. I want to get good with girls. I want to get an amazing girlfriend, and I want to be happy with my life. Sounds great, huh? Yeah. Sounds awesome. But you know what? You're already living in a reality where you're getting by, right? You might not be thriving, but you're getting by. And so your body says, no, it's fine. This is okay. Imagine it like a plant, all right? Think of a plant. If the plant, because we're a lot like that, if the plant has found a source of nutrition and water, like, okay, here's some dirt, and there's some water here. It might not be the best dirt in the world. It might not be the best, the most water to grow into what I'm capable of as a plant, but it's there. Who wants to uproot yourself and go looking around and risk the possibility of not finding what you hope for? Right? So most people don't want to do that. There's so much that is involved in this. Look, take a wolf pack. If you have a wolf pack, which wolf do you want to be?
Alpha.
The alpha wolf, right? Everyone says the alpha wolf. Being the alpha male, is it just kind of like everyone loves you and the girls come and let you reproduce with them and everything's hunky-dory?
No.
Right?
Are you responsible for the survival of the whole pack?
Do you have to expend a lot of energy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta, I mean, for an alpha male wolf, if someone else steps up, he's gotta like show that he's still the alpha, right? What is that like with people?
Conflict.
Haters.
Yeah.
Conflict and haters. You guys ever heard of a hater?
Yeah.
What they call that being in hip hop, they call that being a player hater, right? You guys ever heard of a player hater? What is that? What's a hater?
Somebody who is unhappy with their level of success. So they see somebody else doing better and they're like, oh, that's cheesy as hell, man.
Yeah.
I don't like what you're doing. It's not real, whatever.
Do you guys ever read absolutely, and do you guys ever read the articles where people will be like talking about the dating community and you can tell that like just total haterism? Like it's like, because that guy is living with some woman that he just was never in love with in the first place. He settled with her, right? He hasn't actually had any good sex in over a decade, and he's like, oh, look at this community, it's so creepy. Ugh. Right? Just straight up haters, And then probably he'll come up with good rationalizations of little things that he focuses on that might be true, and he blows them out of proportion. All right? That's how people are, right? If you're going to hate on somebody, you'll find stuff that is true about them, and then you'll blow it up out of proportion in your mind, and you'll make a belief set out of it. So, One of the biggest games that your mind plays is reordering perception to preserve the map. Your mind does not want you to get high status. Look, why does if a wolf's not the alpha wolf, why does he stay in the pack?
Because it's pretty good being the beta male too. I mean,
do you stay? Yeah, as long as you get fed, right?
Yeah.
As long as you stay alive, you're good.
You don't have to think.
You don't have, and look, less expenditure of energy. Guess what, guys? Becoming like this new guy who has experienced deep identity level change, to get there is an expenditure of energy, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
You know? You guys heard of like the peacock, and how the peacock basically shows these like bright feathers and stuff, which is, it's actually an expenditure of energy.
Sure.
But it's showing the health and vitality. Well, being that outgoing guy, you know, gregarious and stuff like that, there is energy that's being expended.
Sure.
In fact, if you want to get really specific, you want to get kind of really interesting, this is like, we're getting kind of advanced here, but really interesting. If you have a provider male social strategy, right? Like your unconscious mind has recognized, look, the best thing for me to do is just kind of work hard, and then I can just meet girls like that. When you're out at a social setting, you'll feel like it's a waste of your time. Like your instincts are telling you, don't worry about this. Just go home and work, and then you can meet a girl that way. Just don't worry about it. Like your instincts are actually telling you that. It's like this is a wasteful expenditure of energy.
Sure.
You want to get even more advanced? Would you guys like to do that? Yeah. All right. I have a theory. This is one of those theories I've never articulated before because I think it sounds so stupid. But it's one of those beliefs that I've kind of never said, but I do believe it. So I'll just be authentic. I think that there's two different types of guys that get laid a lot. Have you guys ever heard the expression, the leader of men?
Sure. Yeah.
I think there's two types that get laid a lot. I think one is the leader of men. I think the other, I would almost call it the wandering nomad. All right?
No one's going to find out.
You know? Yeah, exactly. I really believe it. Okay, look. Maybe this theory is totally accurate or maybe it's totally bunk, but at least the application of it could have some validity in your life, so I'll explain it. The leader of men in the caveman tribe would have been the guy who kind of just like, you know, he goes out, he kills the animals, he's a dominant guy there, and he probably has a harem. But I really believe this, that there was probably like wandering cavemen that were actually not leaders of men. They had alpha male characteristics, but they just kind of wandered around on their own, and they'd sort of like come into like a pack, and he'd wind up, you know, hooking up with a couple girls in there. And what that would do, this is just a theory I have, is it would bring a new set of genetics into the small little group, right? Because I'll tell you why I think this. Yeah, whenever, you know what I'm talking about, right? Whenever you're traveling, you get this vibe. You know what I'm saying? When you're traveling all around the world, you get this vibe, and girls just want to hook up. Like, I mean, yeah, you know, it's like, and I've seen it with Rsd instructors. They'll come back from doing a tour, and they are just killing it, right? It is incredible. And on one level, you know, you could size that up to like, for example, you know how like if a British person comes to America, are there any British people here in this audience? Yeah. Okay. Do girls like your accent at all?
Yeah.
Like, are they like, do they think it's okay, or do they go into trance?
They go into a trance.
They go into a trance. All right. As an American or Canadian, you get that to an extent when you go to Australia. Not as much as an Australian guy will get it here, but you do get to take a little bit of sweet revenge when you go down to Australia, all right? Okay, so a little bit, not as much as they get. Anyway, there's something about like that different gene pool, right? And like bringing new genes in the tribe. I think women just respond to that. And even if you're not like the leader of men, there is that sort of thing. And I also think that when you have become a leader of men, the temptation can be to stop being the nomad. All right? Like, when you've achieved a certain level of status in life, and you're providing an incredible amount of value for the people around you, and women can see that, you know? Like, say that you bring a woman into your work, and she sees that everybody respects you, and everybody admires you, and you make people feel good and they're happy. Well, of course, you know, women are going to respond to that, right? But when you do that, you kind of feel like you're above the game now. Like, cold approaching is just so silly and so stupid because you've got your whole thing with women on lockdown now. Likewise, when you're like the wandering nomad, you kind of feel like all that leader of men stuff is just so unnecessary, you know? Just roll out, man. You know, grab your motorcycle or whatever, you know, like the stereotype, roll out in your motorcycle, or in real life, just, you know, fly around and catch buses or whatever and taxis. But the point is, you just travel around and you wind up hooking up with girls, including a lot of girls that might be with that leader of men. So the thing is, I think that there's two different types, all right? I think that that's sort of a sub-level, all right? So that's sort of a side tangent before we wrap this section. Who knows if it's true, but it's an interesting way of thinking of things. Now, here's what I learned on boot camp, guys. One of the freakiest things that I learned on boot camp, all right? And we're going to end off on this. And I'm going to leave you with this as we go into tomorrow, as we go deeper down the rabbit hole. So one of the things that I learned on boot camp, okay, so I'm going to kind of whine and bitch a little bit, but then I'm going to show you how, rather than bitching about it, I proactively fixed it and how the educational lesson that you guys are going to learn. So when I first started running boot camps back in 2002, sometimes I would have a guy that I was working with, and I would do like incredible demonstrations, like the stuff that I would show him would be amazing, and he himself would do amazing. But at the end of the night, he would be bitching that he didn't see enough demonstration and that he himself sucked and he didn't learn anything. So I would get that back then. And I would go home raging, because anyone who's taken a program with me knows I put my heart and soul into those programs. So the thing is, like, I thought, why? What is going on here? But eventually, I began to notice commonalities. I began to see and actually be able to predict how successful somebody would be within 30 seconds of meeting them. How successful that they would be on a boot camp. But I have ways of changing this, by the way. As a teacher, I have ways that I change this so that everybody will be successful. Now, essentially, say that you have a low concept of yourself. Have you guys ever heard the expression, what you think of other people is a reflection of what you think of yourself? You guys ever heard that one, right? Like, usually the guys who are the most judgmental and spiteful are oftentimes just reflecting their own self-hate. All right? Well, look, this goes even deeper. Say that you have a concept of yourself as being a chode. What we have here is called the success barrier. Well, look, what's going to happen? Say that he has it right in front of his face, specifically how to get girls. Well, guess what? Now he would have the knowledge, right? He would know how to do it. And beyond that, what if that guy, okay? What if that guy, not only that, had done amazing approaches, all right? What if he had done amazing things that night? And he would have to realize, look how great that I did. Let's give some numbers here. Let's say that you do 10 approaches, right? And 7 of them are great. Hell, let's say 4 of them are great, okay? If you're a new guy and you got 4 girls who you've never met in your entire life to actually be into you and connect with you or be attracted to you, that's pretty cool. Because your buddy who's sitting at home playing World of Warcraft, the only thing he got attracted was the orc princess. You know, right? That's it. And I know guys that actually have World of Warcraft and EverQuest girlfriends, all right? So look, okay? They're probably fucking fat dudes playing on the other end. So, right? Okay, Mindy or whatever, right? Okay. All right, so basically, a guy who's really positive, right? Like a guy who believes that he can be successful, if he believes it, he'll go out, and even if he does 2 good approaches, you know what he's going to remember? The 2 good ones, right? And say that he saw some good stuff. He's like, you know, I think I saw how to do it. And I did these 2 good ones. And, you know, I had some rough landings, but if I could just, you know, focus on those 2 good ones, I could get where I want to go. Right? Meanwhile, you'll have a guy that might have done 9 amazing approaches, but he had the 1 bad one. And if he has a success barrier, what's he going to focus on every time? Yeah, all right, reticular activation system, that's exactly it. He's going to focus on that 1 bad one, all right? This is such a predictor of success, it's ridiculous. It is a tremendous predictor of success. As a teacher, by the way, one of the things that I always do when I'm teaching is I always focus on the positive. Like if I'm teaching a boot camp, I'll be like walking by the pillar where the good approach took place and go, hey, that's where you did really well with that girl. Great job, right? And I'll keep repeating over and over. Do you remember when you did this? It was great. Hey, repeat back, or like every approach that a guy does when he comes out, I'll say, tell me something good about that approach. And I'll continually hammer in that positivity. Likewise, I'm talking about my teaching here just to teach you guys how to teach yourselves, okay? Just sort of some insights that I learned. When a guy comes out of a bad approach, you want to know what I used to do? I would give negative feedback. I would give the criticism. So he'd get blown out, and I'd say, oh, dude, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Doesn't that make sense on the surface?
Yeah.
Right, makes sense on the surface, right? He went wrong, give him the feedback. That's what the program is.
Right.
That's what it's supposed to be. But the problem is, that's going to get you further and further into your head.
Betas.
Yeah, you kill the state.
Yeah, and kills the state, right?
How to wing.
What's that?
The article, How to Wing, where you're talking about when you criticize your wing.
Yeah,
him.
yeah. When you know, that's what he's talking about, which is really great feedback actually, is basically, I wrote an article about how to be a wingman, and essentially I was saying, if your wingman gets blown out, the last thing you want to do is go, hey bro, you did this wrong, and you did this wrong. By the way, why do guys sometimes do that to each other? And it's not on purpose, there's no bad intention, but why do guys do that to each other?
They want each other to go up.
Well, yeah, that's the good intention, but from a state perspective, why do they start bossing them around? What are they trying to get for the state? Puts them in state, right? Puts them in state. You guys ever had someone do that to you before?
Hell yeah.
And honestly, have you guys ever done that to someone before?
Yes.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, me too, right? So that's like the first several years of me doing this stuff. So basically, what I've learned is that when I teach a boot camp, I actually view learning as like a funnel that dilates, right? So like the more in state that I can bring my group in a boot camp, and by the way, I can highly recommend every person here to take a boot camp, okay? Because these are the lowest ratio, most high quality programs on the planet that you'll ever find. And I am a Nazi when it comes to quality control, right? I basically give most instructors nervous breakdowns about quality control, all right? Most of them have nightmares and stuff. Me going, fucking produce transformation, get the fuck out of here, all right? That's the culture around RSD. Now look, you're teaching the program, and if he's out of state, say that I'm teaching you out of state, this is like the funnel. So I can only pour in a little bit of information. So before I'm even going to give feedback, I want to create state, get you in state, and I'm trying to expand that funnel. Once I've got the state raging, then I can say, oh, by the way, earlier on you did that, and you can improve it like this. And the funnel's there, and the learning can begin. But I'm always moderating that as a teacher in real time, okay? Real-time teaching. So now, what does this mean for yourself in terms of what you focus on? Most guys go out, and like I said, they can't be successful because you get that negative approach. What happens? You focus on it. Have you ever maybe written an article on a forum and like 20 people said it was great and one person like flamed you, and then that one bothers you the most? Yeah. And that's the one, you don't give thanks to all the people that gave you props, but you start responding to that guy? Right. Yeah, maybe I did that a couple times in the early years, right? Okay, if you read my old archives, right? So basically, that's what most people do though, is they're continually focusing on that one negative one, forgetting about all the positive ones they have. Well, what's the solution then? Open your mind up. Allow yourself to focus on the positive. There's been has anyone here ever read my article called The 25 Points?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, did you guys like it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, you know what's interesting? As awesome as it is, and I love the article, I actually don't use it for teaching purposes anymore live. Because it's negative. Yeah. That's right.
I was thinking about that a while back.
Awesome, awesome. Because what happens is like, I wrote this article called The 25 Points, and what it was like the 25 most common mistakes that I had ever seen on a boot camp. If you can go to www.rsdnation.com or www.rsdwiki.com. We actually have a full wiki dedicated to RSD. So basically, you can find those articles. And the 25 points, as great as it was, and I was very happy with it because it really nailed out a lot of the errors that people made, it puts them in their head. It gets them focusing on the negative. Well, there was a study done where they were, and my friend Igor told me about this, who's actually into like, mind type stuff and hypnotherapy. His name's Igor Lidichowski. He's a good buddy of mine. So what he was saying, and I don't know if it's true, and I don't care if it's true, if I remembered it properly. Here was the story. It was something like this. Apparently, they were training people how to shoot a gun. And so the FBI would train people how to shoot the gun, and they'd say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and don't do this. What they did was this experiment, and again, I don't know if this is true, was they took an old lady, and they said, look, here's like the 3 most important things that you have to do, like the positive things, like what to do, not what not to do, okay? And they taught her that, and apparently she learned how to become like a crack shot in like 10 times faster or something than all these FBI guys. Has anyone heard of that story before?
Tony Robbins.
It makes sense though.
Tony Robbins did a study with a bunch of, I think it was Army guys that he was teaching how to shoot. Pistol training. And what he did is they had those don't.
Yeah.
They just reframed them in the positive. And the reason why is because your mind doesn't accept negative programming.
Yeah.
So if I tell you like don't think of a pink elephant, you just thought of a pink elephant.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like, don't talk too fast. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of saying talk slowly, be comfortable, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. You can latch onto it, right? Like do this, and you can constantly see it, and you're like, am I doing it? Yeah, do it.
Imagine this. Remember the road in Maui that I was talking about?
Yeah.
Imagine you're driving that road, and the guy in the passenger seat's going, "Don't drive off the cliff, bro." Dude, don't drive off that cliff, bro. We do not want to fall off that cliff.
Isn't that what he's saying on Time of Your Life? You know, because I know you've seen it. Like what you.
I mean, that was a long program, probably. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What Tony Robbins said, in Time of Your Life, he says, he says it's like you're driving a race car, and if you spin out, right, if you look at, your instinct is, where's the wall? Where's the wall, right? And you keep looking at it, and then you'll drive into the wall. Instead, you got to look at where you want to go, okay? But anyway, coming back to the idea of success barriers, okay? And let's say focus on success barriers here. Again, people will remember the approaches that matches their existing reality. You remember how we said reordering perception to preserve the map? Well, what people will do, if your map or reality is, I'm a chode, what are you most likely to remember on your program?
Bad approaches.
Or you're on your night, rather. The bad approaches that you did. Right? If you're a guy who has an empowering self-concept. Remember we talked about identity yesterday? Yeah, sure. If you have that empowering self-concept, you have that high on the totem pole belief about yourself, you're going to focus on the positive. And what happens then, you ever learn how to play basketball and maybe like, in your mind, even when you're like at home, you're imagining dribbling, like, you're imagining taking shots? You guys ever done that? Sure. Maybe with hockey, like you imagine that kind of like as you're daydreaming? Well, when you're going through the motions properly, your mind is feeling those motions. Right? Like what a nice, smooth approach looks like. And so essentially, when you're focusing on the positive, you become so focused in that and immersed in that and not thinking about all this negative nonsense that eventually you blow up. You blow up and you get the skills that you want. I guess the thought that I would leave you with is this. We've had a very long, interesting day today, and we've gone deeper down into the rabbit hole. All right? And maybe we're like 75% of the way down, because tomorrow we're going even deeper, all right? And all of the knowledge that we've built up to this point is building towards tomorrow. So we talked today about what your reality is and how your reality draws other people in. And we talked about how your reality can also hold you back or empower you. The message that I want to leave you with today, ultimately, is to see the best in yourself and to see the best in other people. All right? So when you go out tonight, and I like to leave a sort of an idea to go out with every night, I want you to see the best in yourself and cut yourself a ton of slack. And I also want you to see the best in other people. Because when you see the best in other people, you assume that other people are seeing the best in you. That becomes a part of your reality. And I really think that in this world, if more people thought like that, the world would be a much better place to live in. That's the end of day 3. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Thanks, guys.